So I think this is the best mock draft that I've done so far. Welcome back, Dolphins fans. Today we're going to be going over basically a mock draft. I'm not going to screw up the third round because I understand that it's a pick now. So if you watched my last video, I kind of thought it wasn't a pick. Now I understand, which kind of excels everything. And I think this draft is probably one of the better ones, the better mock drafts that I've done in here. You want to kind of get a bunch of different young players so that, honestly, if you succeed this year, which I'm hoping that Mike McDaniel and Chris Grier do, the next year, a lot of the veteran players that cost hundreds of millions of dollars, you can basically purge all of them and build a new roster based upon young players, because we have a lot of young talent. And if you look back at one of my previous videos, I talk about extending Jalen Phillips. This is a person that I think you need to extend and just completely get younger as a Dolphins team. And like I said, the veteran players that we have this year, each one's kind of dwindling. You know, Raheem Mostert, Durham Smythe, and Kendall Fuller, they were all cut. The end of this year, if we succeed, we can then get rid of Tyreek Hill, Bradley Chubb, Teron Armstead, you know, all of those players that are taking up a significant amount of cap room. And depending on if Tua succeeds or does not succeed, you know, we can also think about moving him around, where you can then rebuild a team in the philosophy of basing it on not having to take such a step back. You know, this is kind of the ability right now that we have, that if we draft well this draft and we bring in some decent free agents, you have a lot of players that have a big cap space that are cuttable next year, that then next year we can walk into free agency with about $60-70 million and be able to build this team again, but build it right. So when you get into this mock draft, you're going to see I'm going to grab a bunch of different positional players so that you can fill out the roster after free agency, and you can have all the depth that you need or starter capabilities when it comes to these players. All right, mock draft Monday again, guys. So we're going to be going with a trade in this first round, because when I see here, when you look at this, basically Shadur Abdul Carter going to the Patriots, that's wild that none of them would have taken him. So Malachi Starks go to the Jets, Luther Bird and James Pierce is over here. So right now what we got is 13. You can sit there and take Kelvin Banks, which he might be there if you trade back. Walter Nolan is back there, and Armand Membao is over there as well. So you got a couple options along with, you know, Kenneth Grant. You have a couple of options here. Mike Green is still there. You know, there's plenty of options. So what I want to do, let's look at the trades. So we would be picking 19th. What I would want to do is possibly get like a second round pick next year. This would be kind of interesting. So for the 13th pick, so we move back a couple of spaces, and you see basically they got Ashton Jonty, which is a strange pickup. But in any case, you basically still have all the players right there. So this is a much more realistic pick. When you're at 13, you know, Armand Membao is kind of a shot. You can also go Gray Zabel. You could possibly trade back and get Gray Zabel if you felt like it, or you could reach for him. But this is a more realistic pick. And what I want to do here is probably go, since we went Membao last time, we'll go either Walter Nolan or Kelvin Banks. Kelvin Banks is another solid player. I like him. I think he's going to transition to guard very well, mean player. So I'm going to take Kelvin Banks with that. And that's the thing. We have now more draft picks next year. Because what you want to do is essentially, we want to rebuild this team, and what Mike might want to do and what Chris Grier might want to do, not, you know, blow your load on this first, because the way that they've set this team up, we'll get a couple players, the way that they kind of run the offense, unless people have just completely figured Mike McDaniel out, which I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think the offensive line had a big issue last year. You're probably going to be able to get to the playoffs, most likely. If we do it right, we could probably get to the playoffs. So Ariante Essere is still there too. But right now, what I'm seeing is, depending on what we do in free agency, which I don't think that we're going to go crazy with linebacker. We might get Terrell Dotson, but here's the thing. We need middle linebackers. We need depth. And you look at basically the safety position right now in the second round is not too hot. You know, you're not going to be getting what's worth. Kevin Winston is kind of the best one, and he's not even really like a decent safety. But you have Carson Schwessinger, and Carson Schwessinger was a beast at UCLA this year. Walk on, the whole nine. The only problem with him is his size, 6'2", 225. He's big, but not like big. Like he probably needs to put on at least 10 more pounds, 10, 15, to be like NFL ready. But that's why you signed Terrell Dodson for another year. You have a guy that's a stopgap player that played pretty well last year. And I think in the second round, after you have this whole trade, you do this, where you get your middle linebacker of the future, and you start rebuilding. So third round, if you guys watched my draft the last time, I didn't realize that we had a comp pick here. So I'm very excited about this, because this is where I think you get your safety. And you have Makuba, which his brother was on the, 49ers. He's a free agent. He's a very good back and forth safety. I think he's going to play more of the free safety position, which is kind of what we need as well. You have him. You have Tate Ratledge, who's another solid player, but I think you don't want to go too many rookies with with offensive line, because you want some people with experience. You want someone with more experience, unless he just blows your socks off and they just have an unbelievable grade on him, which, I think at this point you need to kind of fill through the draft. So you either got Jonas Sanker, who kind of a shorter safety, 6'1", actually, not a shorter safety. I'm thinking of Kelvin. So Jonas Sanker's here, and Andrew Makuba. I honestly think you probably need to go. I think Makuba's probably the pick here. I think he's a much more versatile safety. I think he had an excellent year, and I think this is going to be one of the better pickups. So get Makuba in the third round, and now you're in the fourth. And now here is where you have Terrence Ferguson, who is kind of like a Jonnu Smith setup. 6'5", 255, very similar to Jonnu Smith. Or what you could do is get another trendy receiver that could play in the Mike McDaniel system. There's going to be a lot of picks right here. The fourth round is going to be someone where, if we do it right, you could get a gem in the fourth round. Savion Jones is another solid pickup that you could have right here. Or you could go Elijah Roberts from SMU. He had a great year. 6'4", 295. Kind of that prototypical bigger edge player. And honestly, that's who I think would probably be the best pickup. I think at tight end is not like a serious need where you would do that. And here's the thing. Now we're in the fourth round. Jackson Dart, Quinn Ewers is here. I think Inez Peebles is going to be here. He is a defensive interior player that definitely will take up some space. You got Tyler Barron, who I think underwhelmingly, because of the defense this last year, kind of fell, but I think he's a very similar Jalen Phillips type, where he definitely can get after the quarterback. And I'm biased because of the U. So I think he's a pickup here as well. I just don't think you go quarterback. I don't think that you need a quarterback. I think there's much more that you could do here. So I think the pick is either Tyler Barron or Inez Peebles. And honestly, man, I think the pick is Inez, because you need that interior. You just need a big body to go next to Zach Sealer. That's all you really need. And, depending on what happens here, Quinn Ewers is still here. Kyle Williams is another solid receiver that I think could be another guy that you think about. You got a couple of players here. Tyler Cooper, I think he's like that massive, 6'6", 310. He's this massive guard that just towers over people. You got Cody Lindenberg, another solid pick. There's just a lot of players. Danny Stutzman, he's also another decent linebacker. I think even Dorian Strong is another corner that could possibly be a pickup depending on what we do in free agency. And like I said, I see the quarterbacks. I understand that people are going to want to take them, but I just don't think that's the pick here. I think there's so many other needs on this team. So honestly, the potential pick, this is what I kind of think of the potential pick. Tyler Cooper, his feet don't move well or as well for the NFL level, but I think putting him in the Butch Berry offense, I believe that might be something to take a look at, because he's done well with a lot of different players. And I think none of these other players really are, kind of that type of potential that you could get. Shamar Turner is another one. But yeah, I just don't think you can get that type of player. It's a tough one, but I think you're going for potential here. And he's definitely one of those that he could turn out to be a very good pick. So now you have that second pick in the 5th round. And this is where I think you take your corner. Dorian Strong, he had a pretty decent up and downish type year, but still has a lot of potential. This is what you're trying to get here. You're trying to get some potential, someone that can come in and possibly do something that, really just takes the cake and really can just get on the field. You already got your linebacker. You've already got all these people. Seth McLaughlin is another one, but I think you're good at center. I don't think you need to draft a center this late. So I think you got to go Dorian Strong. I think Dorian Strong is the pick here. Very decent corner. Probably could also play safety if you wanted to, and then you have some depth there. And now we're in the 7th round. And this is where I think if you want to draft a quarterback, sure. That's another thing. I think you get potential here. Ismail Munden is a very high, fast potential player. He could be a banger, a bust. Theo Wise is another one, 6'2". And I think, you want to add a little depth. I think you get that bigger receiver. You get another Izukanma, see if he can turn something out. And then the last pick, maybe you get Tyler Show. Yeah, I would say Tyler Show. I think that might be the pick up here. Get Tyler Show with that last pick. Oh, no, sorry, we got one more pick. Didn't realize that. And then, let's see here. At this point, everybody is... You want to go, we could go Shiloh Sanders. We can get a little Deion Sanders on this team. Ugh, what do we do here? This is kind of just an up in the air pick. Maybe you get Raheem Sanders. Yeah, I think you get that bruising running back. We'll go Raheem Sanders. And that's your draft. That's the one. I think if you trade back, you get a very good pickup. You get Kelvin Banks in the 1st round. You get your linebacker in the 2nd round. You get your safety in the 3rd round. And then you get your edge rusher and your defensive end in the 4th round, or the defensive interior player in the 4th round. And then you're just drafting potential. Theo Wise potential, Dorian Strong potential, Tyler Cooper potential, Raheem Sanders. You get that power back. And I think that's what I would do, trade back a little bit, get a very, very good player, and then stack up some draft picks, because, again, this is what you kind of need to do. So as you can see, you trade back, and you can then get some of the similar players, but essentially getting more picks for next year. Because, like I said, the philosophy that I think you want to go with this draft is you have a lot of picks, you want to be able to pick up good players, and stock yourself up for next year so that you can literally not have to take a step back and sell all the players, but you can then have an abundance of picks next year so that some of your players that you extended grow into veteran players, and you can go from basically the oldest team in the NFL to one of the younger teams in the NFL and still be competing. So when you're picking up, someone like a Kelvin Banks or a Membo at that position, Buccaneers 19, or trading back for like 18, 19 or whatever it would be, you're basically going to be getting picks for next year, and you can stock yourself up. Like I said, second round pick for next year. Now you have 2 second round picks for next year to go and get a solid player. And what you can also do is think about trading Tyreek Hill, or you can do a bunch of moves. But when you look at this draft, what I think you're getting is a lot of players that are going to come in and start in the first 3 rounds. You go and you get Kelvin Banks. That's starting guard off the bat. Then in the second round, you get Schwarzenegger. So you sign Terrell Dotson in free agency for like a 1-year, 2-year contract. Make it cuttable after 1 year, and you have Schwarzenegger that's going to learn under Jordan Brooks and Dotson and groom so that he can be one of the starters next year and take over, and we can have our lead linebacker. And then the third round, you get Makuba's brother from the 49ers, and you could possibly pick up Makuba in free agency and have his brother under him, learning from him. And then you maybe have, just like the Patriots had with the McCourty brothers, you have the Makuba brothers in the backfield as safeties. And then you kind of draft for what is the best possible player in that. So then you get, your 6'6", 310 offensive lineman. You get your big bruising running back. These are players that can, take a play or take plays immediately coming into this season. Peebles that can just clog up that middle spot. All of these players can immediately start contributing versus getting, potential players like we have Kamara, where he just didn't even touch the field this last year. So you build this team through this draft, and you can perfectly set it up with a trade back and be able to get a bunch of picks for next year. But that's what I'm thinking. We're going to do a couple more mock drafts. I'll maybe make some more trades coming into this, but I think this is probably one of the more solid drafts that you have, and you get a lot of startable players and a lot of players that can come in and contribute and fill out the roster. But as always, guys, hit that like and comment down below if you have a different player that you would want to get in a different round. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Fins up, baby. Love you all. Peace.